Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the Unshakable Uplift. I'm your host, Coach Lysa. And right now we're doing a 3-episode series on building a life, an unshakable life that reflects who you are. And last week we did series 1 or episode 1, what we called the foundation. And so we're talking about the foundation, the frame, and the finish. And so it's intentionally building a life that you love, life by design. And so I'm going to do just a quick summary about what episode 1 covered and then move us into building a frame. And so last week we talked about what is identity. We hear a lot of things about identity in the news, and a person can have an identity, a family can have an identity, even a nation can have an identity. And so when I say identity, I'm talking about the internal beliefs that you hold about who you are, your worth, what you're capable of, and how you show up in the world. So just summarized, identity is the story you believe about who you are. Not what others think, but who you say you are. And so before anything can be built, whether it's a house or a life, you have to establish a foundation. And you want that foundation to be solid and to be anchored. Many of us are trying to live out an identity that we didn't intentionally establish a foundation and we didn't anchor it. And so a foundation is beneath the ground. We don't see it, but it's really key. It's essential to everything else we do. And oftentimes we set our foundation on other people's expectations or past trauma, or we are performance based. And that's one of the things we talked about last week, was getting away from being performance based. And so this week, we're going to talk about the frame. And so you've got a foundation laid, and that foundation is evident of who you are. It's that God-given, authentic design, what I call the divine blueprint. It's how you were formed when you came into the world. So it's how you showed up as a child. And most children are authentic. They live from where they are, who they are. They're expressive, they're creative. And then sometimes life does different things to us. We talked about attachment versus authenticity. And sometimes in order to survive in life, we have to hide our real self. And so as adults, we get to go back and choose which of those parts we let go of. And we don't reject them. We just let them gently slide to the side, and we get to choose who we're becoming. And so today we're going to talk about building the frame. And so think about the house or apartment that you live in. There's walls, there's joists, there's what they call load-bearing walls. Those load-bearing walls are essential. Like your doorway is not a load-bearing wall, but the doorway is also pretty essential. You wouldn't build a room and not put a door in it. And so again, in our lives, we want to follow that same pattern. And those load-bearing walls in your structure are the things that define who you are. And it's your core values. It is what you believe. It is your gifts, talents, and abilities, the things that are intrinsically in you that let you function in the world. And so let's talk for just a minute about belief systems. And so what your belief system determines what your life can support. And so if you say, I know who I am, but your internal beliefs don't agree with that, you get out of alignment. And so your internal beliefs form from childhood, it forms in school, it forms even into junior high, high school, college, and then into the workplace. And a lot of these beliefs are so invisible, if you would, to us. It's like your computer's operating system. You don't see your computer's operating system, but it's always there, running in the background, determining how your computer functions. And it can get outdated, just like a computer operating system can get outdated. And so I encourage the people that I coach and that I work with on inner healing work to go back and look at and become aware of your belief system. And so, again, the family that you grew up in, whether it was functional, semi-functional, or dysfunctional, that determines a lot of your belief systems. You know, if you grew up in a home where boys were better than girls, I know a lot of people that deal with this, it skews your belief system about what is preferred or what you think about being a girl or a woman. And it's really one of those things we want to overcome and get to the point where you accept, and not just accept, but embrace your identity of being a woman. And for me, it took me a long time to really get comfortable in my own skin, believing that I had worth and value. And it feels kind of silly to say it out loud, but it's really prevalent. I know so many women who struggle with this. Another internal belief system is what we believe about money. You know, do we believe that being wealthy is a good thing or a bad thing? What were the examples? If you were looked at, you know, and I go back to, it's a silly example, but go back to the example of the old Disney cartoon about Huey, Dewey, and Louie, the three little ducks. Their Uncle Scrooge was a millionaire or a billionaire, but he was really greedy and mean. And so sometimes those things get into our belief system without us really realizing it. And it forms these belief systems that we operate from that we're not even aware of. And again, for me personally, a belief system that snuck into my core being is that I wasn't a good enough. I wasn't enough just in how I was. And so I've done a lot of work to undo that and let go of that self-criticism and that self-judgment, that self-hatred. The word self-loathing even came up for me. And so that was part of my operating system. And I've chosen to release that and to replace it with much healthier things. You know, I am a daughter of the King. I am enough in who God made me. I function in the world with excellence. Those are some of the things that I replaced those wrong belief systems with. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. The next one is core values. And you may have or may have not heard of this for a person. So many corporations, particularly corporations that are very personal or personality oriented, talk about their core values. And so we also, as individuals, have core values. It is the 3 to 5 key things in life that we will not, or at least should not, ever compromise. And so your core values determine your decisions. They determine what you want to say yes to and what you want to say no to. And if you're not aware of your core values, it makes it much harder to adhere to them and to make those good decisions. When you are violating or compromising your own core values, you feel out of alignment, you feel off. And where I experienced this was working for a particular company who had very different core values that did not align for me. I was there for about 4 years, and it was like almost every day at work felt off. It's like the inside of me could not support what this company believed in and was representing. And so I had to go find a different job that was more in alignment with my core values. You know, my number one core value is integrity. And I will go out of my way to stay integrous. I will lose money to stay integrous. I will let go of relationships if I have to be able to stay in my core value of integrity. And so out on my website, it's lysabeltz.com, lysabeltz.com/resources. I have a core values worksheet that you can download at no cost. And it gives you a list of words. You go through and circle the words that stand out to you. And then the hard part of this exercise is going from 15 words down to 10, down to 5. And if you can do it, go down to 3, because those 3 top core values are what you need to not compromise in life, whether that's family, whether that's fun, integrity, liberty, freedom. There's a whole list of words there. You need to know your top 3, and you need to live from there. And then when you're making decisions, whether it's in life or career or whatever is a key decision for you, you need to factor those in when you make that decision. That's going to help you build this structure, this frame in life that is going to keep you aligned and building this life that reflects who you really are. And that's our goal. Okay. And so the next one is family systems and patterns. And so another part of your structure that we learned from our family is communication. The way you communicate, the way you handle conflict, the roles that you step into. And I have a couple of friends who grew up in Italian culture, and it is very loud and boisterous, and they argue to accomplish things. They argue as a form of communication, but it's all done in love. There is not animosity. There is not anger. It's just the way their normal communication is. And I'll tell you, it's really foreign for me. That is not the culture I grew up in. Mine was a much quieter, much calmer. You just logically talk through things. And so to be around these other family cultures that are so different, where people talk over the top of one another, it's like, how do you remember who said what? But they do, because that's normal for them. And so think about your family culture that you grew up in. And if you have a significant other or a spouse, you came from a family culture, they came from a family culture, and now the two of you together are creating a family culture. And you want to be intentional about that as well. So give yourself a few minutes to kind of process through and think about, what was my family culture? How did we handle conflict? You know, growing up, I can remember literally 2 different times when my parents fought, when there was a loud exchange of words. Most of the time, they discussed things pretty calmly and came to a conclusion. But those 2 times stand out to me because they were so different from the norm. And so you've got to have a healthy culture where that expression and that frustration and even anger is allowed to be expressed, but then processed through, and you come back together. So if we're not intentional about this, we end up building our adult lives on patterns that we didn't choose. And again, like we talked about last week in episode 1, you get to choose what life looks like. You're building a life that reflects who you authentically are. All right. So then the next section we're going to talk about is gift, talents, and design. And so the frame of your life also has to include how you individually, uniquely you, are designed to function. Your gifts, your talents, your natural wiring. So like, I'm an introvert who's also an extrovert. I call it an ambivert. So I need to be around people, but then I need time to go be alone, to have quiet, to have what we call white space. And if any of you use the DISC personality style, and again, I'm going to talk about personality styles here just for a second. So there's a number of tests out in the world that you can take that are data points. They don't define you, but they can give you some data points about how you're wired. Myers-Briggs, Strengths Finders, Enneagram, DISC. I also do human design. And so all of these data points, so you can also do spiritual gift tests. And if you're in the Christian persuasion, there are fivefold gift tests that you can do. These are all free online. They're all data points that just give you clues. Again, do not let them define you, but they are clues that point you to coming to a conclusion of who God made you to be. And so you take these data points, and that helps you to assess how you are naturally wired. And that's what you want to live and move in. That's how you want to reflect life. And so we're going to take a really quick break, and we come back. We're going to conclude gifts, talents, and design, and we're going to talk about boundaries. So join us back here in just a moment. And welcome back. This is episode 2. We're talking about the frame, building the life that reflects who you are. And we were just talking about your talents and how you're naturally wired. And I want to talk about for just a second here, when you are moving, living, and having your being that is reflective of who you authentically are, you're energized. That's when life feels good. That's when you are flowing. It's not every step walking through quicksand or feeling like you're trudging through mud, but there's a flow to life. And that's really where we want to get. We want to get to where it's enjoyable to wake up in the morning and step into your life, because this life genuinely reflects who you are, and you're excited to live this life. And so when you're out of alignment with your structure, when you're out of alignment with your core values, things just feel off. So if that resonates with you, take a few minutes and do some journaling about what feels off versus what feels authentic. And so the next thing I want to talk about is boundaries. And again, in personal growth circles, we talk a lot about boundaries because so many of us don't have well-defined boundaries. We don't know where our boundaries are. And again, as women, a lot of times when we do know our boundaries and we set boundaries and hold them, people feel like we're either being aggressive or uncooperative, or there are some other not so complimentary words that they use about us. But knowing your boundaries and holding them is crucial in building a life that reflects who you are. Boundaries protect your structure. They protect your time, your energy, and your emotional space. And again, as a mom with, my daughter's older now, but when she was growing up, I was driving her to karate. I was taking her to school. I was doing all of the parent volunteer things. And not that those are not good things to do, but we can overcommit and get ourselves spread too thin. And we are not giving of our overflow. We're giving of our essential. And that's when you get worn out and burn out. And again, moms, think about what you're modeling for your kids. Are you modeling that burnout and being exhausted and being the mom that does everything is the best way to be? Because your daughters are going to follow in your footsteps. So let's come back to boundaries. Without boundaries, even a strong structure can get weakened. And so we want to stop overcommitting. We want to stop overextending ourselves. And I joke about in America, particularly with women, we talk about attending the Church of Our Lady of Perpetual Exhaustion. And we wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. And it really isn't. It takes away from your energy. It takes away from your stamina, that ability to keep going. And it actually takes away from the things you are supposed to be doing and focusing on. We sacrifice sleep, again, like it's a badge of honor. All those things damage your body. And over time, it erodes your ability to build and live this life that you want. So you need to think about, what are you saying yes to when your body is screaming, no, don't do that. You want to be fully internally aligned. So I challenge you to look at your boundaries. Okay, so let's move on to where a lot of us get stuck. We know truth. We know that we're not living our core values. We know that we're not honoring our intrinsic design. We know our boundaries maybe are not as strong or shored up as they're supposed to be. But what do we do when we recognize it and it's hard to change? What happens when we say yes when we mean no and we're living from those old patterns? It can be challenging, but I will tell you it's essential for you to tackle these things. And don't try to tackle them all at once. Find one thing today or this week that you can change. And sometimes that change starts from the inside out. You may not change external things first. Allow yourself to do the work to find what you need to change inside. Sometimes it's going from I have to I get to. That can be a big internal change. We use that word reframe. Reframe the things you have to do to genuinely saying, I get to. Because there's a lot of people that would probably love to be able to get to do some of the things you do. And not that you base your foundation or your frame on other people, but there's an appreciation, there's a gratitude that comes. And that gratitude can help you to shift on bigger things. And I can't touch on everything that could affect you, your spouse, your marriage, your finances, your job. If you're stuck in a job that sucks the life out of you and that you absolutely hate, that is not where God wants you. There is a better fit somewhere else. Begin asking God to open the doors and to show you where you can move that would allow you to be authentic. We invest so much of our energy in ourselves and our time in our jobs. If you're in a job that you really hate, and I just feel like there's going to be somebody listening to this today that really needs to hear this, you are not stuck. You may have been there for a while. You might be entrenched. You're not stuck. There is a way out. There is better waiting for you. And one of the things we have to learn to do is to receive. And if you're in this mindset of, I have to go do, I have to go make this happen, again, I offer you the chance to reframe that and say, life has something better. God has something better for me. I'm going to open up my life to receive what good things life will bring me. And if that's not been your experience up to today, today's a new day. You get to change. Let go of trying to white knuckle this and open your hands up to receive. Ask God, ask life to bring you a better opportunity, and then be patient as it takes time to unfold. But again, going back to building your structure, building your frame, shore things up. Even if a wall is shaky, it can be fixed. Nothing is imprinted in stone. you have the ability to change. And that's the good news. And if you feel overwhelmed, identify at least one thing that can get set aside. Identify one thing that can wait. We have this mindset that everything has to be done today, and it doesn't. Find the essential, critical things that support you and that keep building the life that you really want, and take those steps forward. And so, how do we strengthen our frame? How do we shore this up? It's the same way that we did with our foundation. It's aligning with truth, knowing your core values, knowing your belief system that you choose into, knowing your communication pattern, knowing you as a person. Are you an introvert, extrovert, or a mixture? How do you function well? Find that truth and then align with it. Coming into alignment is absolutely key to building a life that reflects who you are. So look at all those things. Look at your patterns. When are you energized? When are you drained? How can you do more of what energizes you? Establish those boundaries. This is where identity becomes lived, not just something you know, but something that your life actually reflects. And so I want you to think about this question this week. Where in your life is your structure out of alignment with who you authentically know you are? And you can have a conversation with yourself. You can journal this. I use ChatGPT as a coach sometimes. If you're using an AI tool, ask it. Say, this is what my life looks like right now. Point out some ideas to me where I might be out of alignment. And it may feel funny going to a computer and asking that, but sometimes you're just looking for clues. You still need to drive that conclusion. Only you can choose and change. But the good news is you get to choose and you get to change. And again, I really want to emphasize this is not working harder. This is not trying harder. This is not exerting more energy. It's actually backing off and letting some things flow rather than trying to force it. But identify those places where you need realigned. Once your foundation is solid and your structure is aligned, you get to choose into building something that is beautiful to you, that reflects who you authentically are. A life that doesn't just work for you, but a life that feels like home. You want to love where you live, and that where you live is who you are. And so I want you to keep this in mind. God didn't just design who you are. He designed how your life is meant to hold who you are. So our unshakable key is that your life can only hold what your structure is built to support. Identity is rooted in our truth, not just our experiences. Build your foundation, build your structure, make it authentic to you. And then next week, we're going to close out this 3-episode series on the finish. What are the things that you bring into life that makes it really enjoyable? What brings it flair and pizzazz and zest? What makes life really fun? So I hope you'll come back and join us next week for episode 3, The Finish. This is Coach Lysa with Unshakable Uplift. Thanks for listening in today. Go grab that core values worksheet and let me know in the comments on this episode how it's helping you.